So let's talk more about what's going to happen today in the Congress. They're actually going to vote on this to limit the Syrian refugee program. What they're calling it a pause. I call it the start of an elimination. Isn't it interesting how quickly the Republicans can move on their agenda as opposed to maybe infrastructure of bridges falling down in America, killing people, or anything else that might be out there that might be good for you and for me as tax-paying citizens? It's just amazing how they are so agenda-driven. Let's visit now with Congressman Jim McDermott of Washington. Congressman, good to have you with us.
Good to be here, Ed.
Have you ever seen anything move so fast in the Congress as to limit this, quote, program that is going to bring terrorists into America?
You know, Ed, it's very awesome and worrisome because what you're seeing is people reacting strictly out of fear. And when you see people do that kind of thing, they don't make good decisions. We've done that in the past. In our area, in 1941, we rounded up a lot of Japanese, assuming that somehow they were going to be bad. And then their soldiers turned out to be the bravest soldiers that went to war for us. So in many ways, this kind of reaction, a fearful reaction, is scary for the society, but it's worse because it's done by leaders, people who should be leading the society. Not.
You're exactly right, Congressman. Now, this is going to take it to a level of almost an impossibility for Syrian and Iraqi. Now they're including Iraqi refugees in this. Notice how that legislation is written up. And they're causing it a pause. I call it an eventual elimination. I think that's a real possibility. What do you think?
Well, in my view, it clearly is. What you've got here is a movement to keep anybody who's brown or Muslim out of this country. We've had these before. I mean, no Irish need apply is only 150 years ago. But what we're doing now is imagine being a Muslim in this country right now and having the Congress acting as though everybody who comes from Syria and Iraq is a danger to us. That's just nonsense.
We're talking about orphans and widows and people who have been terrorized, people who have been living in these refugee camps. This is about rescuing people. And I find it very interesting that there is no debate in France over this. France has said they're going to take in as many as 30,000, and they're the folks that got just recently hit. What do you make of that?
Well, I think President Hollande made very brave statements today when he said that he was not going to respond to this kind of stuff, and they were going to continue to take refugees in France. And he showed the real class of the French culture, that they were not going to be scared to death by an incident like this. Surely everybody worried, everybody's scared. I don't want to for 1 minute minimize that, but what you cannot do is act like you are going to fix it by somehow closing the door on something that has been the way the world has been, where you could move from country to country.
Yeah. Congressman, it reads like this. The Secretary of Homeland Security, the Director of the FBI, the Director of National Intelligence would each have to sign off personally on every person admitted from the two countries, Iraq and Syria. I mean, if that's not setting up a bar that is going to eliminate, all it takes is one person to say no, they can rotate that around. I mean, this is all about shutting our borders. Instead of having confidence in the process, it sends a horrible message to the people who are already here in the United States and signals to them that we are a racist society. That's how I view it. Maybe you view it differently.
No, I don't. And I've taken a lead on a couple of people who were translators for us in Iraq and watched the difficulty it was, even for somebody who had worked side by side with our soldiers and who had saved people's lives because they could interpret what was going on in the street, and they had a hard time getting into this country. This is a message to the rest of the world. Do not help the United States because they'll never help you. That's a terrible message to send out.
It is a terrible message. Is this going to pass today in the House, you think?
Oh, I don't think there's much question that they wouldn't bring it out if they didn't have a bunch of...
And are there Democrats that are being hoodwinked by this as well, Congressman, people in your caucus?
I'm hopeful not. I hope that people will remember the past and remember how, we've got a system in place that it's not as though these people just walk into New York, jump off the plane at John F. Kennedy and come into the United States.
Yeah.
They have to pass almost a 2-year plan now to get in. It's very hard for anybody from Iraq or Syria to get in here. And we told the people who had helped us during the Iraq War that we would let them in, but we've only let 6,000 or 7,000 of them in since the war. So it's simply panic. And I hate to see the American people panicked by their leaders.
Congressman Jim McDermott, always great to have you with us. Appreciate your time here on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Thanks, sir.
You're welcome.
You bet. Bye-bye.